Hello, beautiful warriors, and welcome to the very first episode of my Magical Girl Action RPG devlog. I've been working as a professional game dev for a little over 8 years now, and I began my career as a character animator, but eventually I transitioned into more of a technical art role. So I have a lot of experience doing a lot of different, having a lot of different responsibilities in a team. Because technical art covers a lot of different disciplines, and I also have a lot of experience teaching game dev and stuff like that. So if anyone's interested, I can go more into depth on what my role actually is in a separate video, because it's kind of difficult to explain succinctly. So I've worked at a lot of different studios, but it's always kind of been my dream to be more of a solo indie dev or working on a small team as like a director. So I want to share my entire dev process of this game, like from the very beginning, the concept to the finished product with like a playable, hopefully just a demo for now. And hopefully recording this will help keep me focused and having a clear goal and direction of what I want, because it's very easy to just kind of work on one thing and not really have a focus, and then jump to one thing and another thing and another thing. So I really want to have this more help me keep me on a solid direction and focus, and hopefully I can also build an interested audience, and because having more people interested and having eyes on it's going to help keep me excited and motivated to keep working on it as well, especially because game dev can get really stressful and difficult. So if I have other people interested, it helps keep me interested. So I've been prototyping this project on and off for about 2-ish years now, but I recently decided to dive into a full production, and I kind of want to share, the journey and the process of me making this, and also hopefully I can also encourage other people to pursue their own projects or like get them motivated. And I also want to get people to learn more about game dev too. So that's kind of my goal with starting this game dev, like this devlog process. So let's talk about what the actual game is now. So I've always loved magical girls. I mean, who doesn't love cute girls in frilly dresses punching things? But despite that, I had never even considered a game centered around magical girls, and I don't really know why, because they're very like action oriented. That is until I discovered the music genre future funk, and specifically the song Fun Tonight by Macross 8299. And as soon as I heard this song, I instantly imagined it as combat music, with centered around magical girls, and it's just like I could really feel it fitting that tone really well, and like that was the initial spark, the initial inspiration for starting this game, is this song specifically. So before I started work on my game, of course, I went to research and look around to see if there were any other games similar to my idea, just to look for inspiration, or see if there were any other games with a focus on magical girls. And I was absolutely shocked when I saw that there were basically no games in this genre, like almost none. And the only ones that were like nearly or over 20 years old, like from like 16-bit, 32-bit arcades or the Super Nintendo. The two, like there's only a handful with any amount of like an actual audience, which are a handful of Sailor Moon arcade beat 'em ups and some Sailor Moon fighting games on the Super Nintendo and PlayStation 1. And like since then, there's been pretty much nothing in the magical girl genre as far as games. So there are a handful of more modern games with magical girls, but they all tend to fall into the mobile gacha games, so nothing with any actual like real depth to them. So while like the magical girl genre isn't nearly as popular as it was before, when Sailor Moon was at like its height, but it's still a really popular genre. And every couple of years, shows like Madoka come out that are also really popular, and I just cannot believe no one's ever thought to license these games or license these properties to make action games out of them, because they really do lend themselves very well to it. They're essentially just Power Rangers or Super Sentai with, you know, cute girls. It's wild to me no one's thought of this. So, like, even attempting like smaller AA games or indie games, I still haven't seen anyone try it. So I was pretty disappointed when I saw that these just basically don't exist. But it is also kind of exciting because from what I can tell, I'm going to be the first one who makes any type of game in this genre with magical girls. So, you know, a little disappointed there hasn't been any, like, as far as I can tell, but also pretty exciting. I'm going to be the first one. My first instinct when I started designing the game in the genre was to take inspiration from the Persona series. So a core aspect of the magical girl genre is the superhero style double life, which is also present in the Persona series. And a core theme across pretty much every show in the genre is, you know, the power of friendship, which works really well and complements the sort of social link system that the Persona series uses. So the social link system allows you to, you know, build a stronger bond with the other characters in your team. It helps build up sort of the life of the world, makes everyone feel a little more fleshed out. And as you build those bonds with the other characters in your team, that also provides combat benefits. And one of the most memorable parts of shows like Sailor Moon is actually the interactions between the characters outside of the combat. And that's like why you start to really fall in love with the characters, is those interactions. So I'm going to take inspiration from the life sim parts of Persona. It just feels the most natural sort of gameplay loop to have is combat, and then you know, slower paced life sim, like you're building up the world. You start to feel more attached to the world and characters that way. And you know, like the magical girl genre, like 90% of the protagonists are school-aged girls, so it just makes sense to have that Persona style, you know, double life with sort of the visual novel life sim elements. I feel like that makes a lot of sense for a game set in this genre with this sort of with just the direction I want to take it in. I feel like it makes a lot of sense. So also it helps considering a lot of magical girl shows follow a very monster of the week type format. So I feel like it'd be satisfying and fun to kind of go through your daily life, you know, as a student, you know, having fun with your friends, building your bonds with them, and then maybe at like the end of every week or the end of every other week, you kind of have like, you know, the monster of the week pop up and you got to fight them, and that's sort of the general gameplay loop I want to feel, at least maybe for the first act or so. I feel like that would feel very true to the genre. It'd feel very like satisfying, I think, to sort of follow that gameplay loop. All right, now on to the action and combat. I think a lot of people really overlook how action heavy the magical girl genre can be. And the action can go really hard sometimes too. I think people tend to imagine, you know, that like it's more of a magical girls tend to be more of like a Care Bear style, like friendship beams and like fight everyone with love and forgiveness. And I mean, that stuff's there a little bit, but these girls, they're pretty hardcore. Some of the best fight saga can actually be found in magical girl shows. And, you know, despite, you know, magical being the primary adjective for this genre, a lot of it just comes down to hand-to-hand combat and weapons. Some of these girls are just straight up pulling, like, fucking guns. So it can be, you know, action can go pretty hard. So there's a lot of different shows and a lot of different great scenes to take inspiration from when it comes to, like, action and combat and, you know, designing the gameplay around that. especially magical girl shows that aren't just the one girl, especially ones that have like a team of like 2 to 5 girls on the team, because a lot of them typically have different niches or like combat specialties, and a lot of times they work together in different ways, and like their girls synergize their abilities in different ways. So that leaves a lot of room for expression, like player expression, when it comes to the combat, because you can kind of experiment with mixing and matching the different abilities and see, oh, this ability works well with this ability, works well with like these two girls can like kind of combine their moves in this way, and that's sort of the approach I want to take, is having this sort of emergent combat by mixing and matching your different abilities in different ways. So there's about 3 major phases I want the combat to come in, and I'm taking inspiration from a handful of different games per phase. So like I said before, there's typically a monster of the week style format to a lot of magical girl shows, and there's also sort of a formula to how each of those fights work. And typically the beginning, the girls will blast through a lot of different cannon fodder, grunt type enemies, and there'll be just a lot of like, tens of dozens of enemies they just like mow down. And so that reminded me a lot of, the Musou style Warriors games, where there's just, big fields of enemies and you just tear through them with your big attacks. And, it's a very flashy, very power, very power, what's the word? Power fantasy. So there's lots of that I really want to pull off in that first kind of phase, where usually you're going to just blow through lots of enemies, and you'll have like some objective you're given, like capture a certain location, or collect a certain amount of MacGuffins. So that'll be where you can really like kind of go wild and experiment with the combat a lot, and like I said, or like a really big power fantasy. And so, once you kind of achieve your objectives during that phase, it'll kind of switch to the second phase, where you're going to be fighting more of like stronger mini boss style enemies. They're going to require more thought, more strategy to defeat. And the primary inspiration I'm taking from there is the Final Fantasy remake combat system. Sorry. And I really liked the way that you had to kind of build up your special actions by doing your basic combos. So, you would spend some time doing your basic attacks, and that would build up a meter, your active, your ATB meter in the remake, they called it, once you built that up, you could do special attacks, or, stronger cast spells, do different actions that you couldn't otherwise. And so I really like that system of sort of like building up your special moves, and being able to switch between the different members of your team on the fly and give them different commands. So I feel like that's the best way to make it feel like you're really controlling the whole team, and not just like giving orders to each member of the team. Like you're really like embodying each one and like playing as each one, and they're having the ability to experiment with their different play styles. And that's really what I want the focus to be, is to be able to switch between the different characters on the fly and really get a sense for who each of them are, and like play with them, play each of them differently with their different play styles. And the final phase of the combat is going to be a boss fight, essentially. And you challenge that monster of the week directly. And I really want that to feel like a very like chaotic, high octane like platinum style game, like Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, Nier Automata. Games like that were very action focused, very like combo heavy, spectacle, action driven, set piece style fights. But I still want them to have that level of, strategy and thoughtfulness that you need in the prior phase, where you're having to strategize with your different make your different teammates and your different abilities. So that's kind of what I really want to achieve, is those big spectacle action scenes where you have the whole team fighting together, like lots of Sakuga action, but at the same time you really feel like you're in control of the action and the combat, and you're switching between the team the whole time and really getting this that power fantasy, really feeling like you're taking down that monster as a team. And that's kind of the direction and the feeling I want to have with the combat. Okay, just as a final topic, I wanted to quickly talk about the art style a bit. My goal is to try and replicate that late 80s, early 90s anime cell style look. Right now, the industry leader in stylized cel-shaded art is Arc System Works, primarily on their games Guilty Gear, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and now Granblue Fantasy Versus Rising. Fortunately, ArcSys has actually done a few GDC talks on how they achieve their art style, so I've been investigating and exploring their rendering techniques to see how they achieved the look of their games, because they look beautiful. The very first time I saw it, Guilty Gear Xrd, I actually thought it was 2D. So originally I was going to try to replicate the Sailor Moon anime art style as closely as I could. But eventually I actually stumbled across this artwork from the YouTube channel, what is it called? 90s Lo-Fi Chill Out. And it just has the perfect blend of detail while capturing that vintage anime aesthetic, but still keeping a very modern design aesthetic, modern design appeal, which I really love this art. I feel like it's perfect for the style of the game I'm making. And I've already done some look dev with this style, testing a few different lighting engines and rendering techniques, and so far I'm really happy with the direction it's going in. Eventually I'm hoping to commission this artist to actually do art for the game, like portraits or concept art even. So once I'm a little further along, I'm going to reach out to them and hopefully be able to commission them. And right now, given I'm a solo dev, for now I'm just buying art and animation and stuff off the Unreal Asset Store. But eventually I'm going to hope to make custom art and even commission some of my friends, and that way, once that starts to come together, the art direction for the game should really start to sing, and it should really start to show what my vision of the game is. So once I get sort of the core gameplay in and I'm happy with it, like I'm happy that it's fun, I'm going to start actually replacing a lot of that art I bought and replacing it with my own art or art I commissioned for my friends. And once that happens, I feel like the game's really going to come together. So I really hope you look forward to what I have in store for the future. If you want to keep informed, just subscribe. Let me know what you think. I'm planning on eventually putting together a vertical slice or a demo. Hopefully I can pitch it to bigger studios. Maybe if I get enough interest, I can even work on it independently. Who knows? The scope of this game would be pretty big and difficult to do on my own without some sort of large investment or backer or team to help me out with. But it is I'm really excited about the project, and hopefully getting more eyes on it will, like I said at the beginning, keep me motivated to keep working on it, because it's a pretty big project and it can be pretty overwhelming. I'm trying to stay as doing it one thing at a time as possible, and that's part of doing this devlog too, is sort of breaking things up into chunks, so I know what's important to focus on at what time. And so right now what I'm focusing on is just getting that core gameplay feeling fun, finding the fun. That's what we say at my day job. And once that's in, I'm going to start adding art. It'll still be a very placeholder, but I definitely want to get this into people's hands as soon as possible. So thanks for listening to me ramble about this game I've barely started making. I hope you look forward to it.
You're really late, you know.
It's only because you went ahead and rushed into things.
But you're too fast, Sailor Goofball.